We are live now.
Okay, thank you very much. It's a pleasure. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night. A special day that God has called us again to complete the second part of our training, gaining credibility, influence for mission. We call our Father, our God, to come and help us, give us the graces we need for us to actualize this dream so that His name will be glorified. And I welcome every one of us listening. I pray that God will going to guide us and protect us. As we all know, we started yesterday gaining credibility and influence for mission. The slide will be shared now. We did the first part of the slides that tells us about our topic. And the second part of the slide, we're able to see the same topic of which everybody was welcome into it. And the third aspect of the slide, open prayer. Yes, that is a prayer for who. Oh Father, give us the humility which realizes its ignorance, admits its mistake, recognize its needs, welcome advice, accept rebukes. Help us always to praise rather than to criticize, to sympathize rather than to discourage, to build rather than to destroy, and to think of the people at their best rather than at their worst. This we ask for the name's sake. Amen. And slide 4, we welcome the topic, welcome us to the topic. And in slide 5, we're able to look at the expectations. Slide 6, yesterday we reflected on and shared. Why we're able to look at the overall goals of the section, which we all know, I can still recall it for us to understand properly, maybe the new people that are just joining us here. As regards the overall goal of the section, for learners to learn that when we appreciate and use power and influence appropriately, we gain credibility. And better able to empower others to use power and influence appropriately, we gain credibility. We want to achieve the goal of developing spirituality committed members in our organization. And we also want to engage organization. And engage organization requires empowering others. Empowering others. That's the only area that an aid organization can be fulfilled in their dream, in their vision, in their mission, in their objective. Without that, the fulfillment will not come to perfection. It is also required that we use our own power and influence appropriately to achieve global goals, sustainability, development goal, and global peace, and of God's mission. And we're able to look at the learning objective too. We're able to describe 5 ways to enhance your personal and position power to influence others for the mission. We need to look at that one too. And to use influence appropriately to accomplish exceptional work as a leader. We also look at the contents of the outline, gaining credibility in a new way, gaining and enhancing personal power, transforming power into influence. Look at that area, and we look at slide 10 that tells us about the qualified, what qualified me to handle this topic. We looked at two. We also look at slide 11 that tells us about the rules for the group. Keep beginner's mind, remember freedom to choose, use opportunity to learn from each other, enjoy and have fun. We looked at all those areas. We also looked at the feedback as regard question and clarification, contributions. We look at all those areas. We also look at like the 13 that talks about the survey, gaining power and influences. We look at how all about the survey. We're able to analyze all those areas where we looked at the discourse. Today now, we are also able to look at slide 15 that talks about the gaining power and influence, foreign keys. We look at all those using influence strategies. We are able to analyze all those areas. And today we are going to look at that case study, that is the group exercise, which we gave, that is in slide 20. When we look at slide 20, let us look at slide 20. We look at the new organization chairman, of which he said, a new organization chairman, Ambassador James Stone, assumed office with hope of building on relative success of past administration that are active in a number of activities and programs, including organizing leadership training for all executives of various departments and sections in the organization, promotion of organization activities geared towards getting inactive members and engaged members, ensuring that certain departments and sections were worked harmoniously and smoothly in the organization. Ambassador James Stone had just turned 40, was 5 years old in the organization, and had held a leadership position for 2 years when he was elected at an election that was repeatedly advertised with the agenda of an election, but had only 15 people in attendance. Less than 1 year into his tenure, there were remarkable changes for the work in the vibrancy of the organization. Meeting attendance was at the lowest in 5 years. Organizational activities were sparely attended. An effort to raise funds for a number of the organizational activities were met with dismal failure. When invited at the executive meeting to give accounts of his stewardship and profound solution for turning things around, he stated that nobody listened to him and blamed this on his being from a minority state. Some other concerned members dismissed this as an excuse, pointing out that the first organization chairman, who left an impressive record at the end of his tenure, was also a minority state. They claim that he was not doing enough as he lacked the confidence and approach the big and other members of the organization that would make his job far easier. The organization founder was at a loss as to how to resolve the issue. He felt that his hands were tied as he was constitutionally elected. Moreover, many members deliberately stayed away from election as they did not want to invest the time, energy, and other personal resources needed to hold such demanding organizational position. The chairman has 2 years left in his tenure. I gave that discussion aspect of discussion question. What could he have done to gain the demanded credibility to influence the organization effectively? That was a take-home. And what would you advise him to do now to make a substantial change before the end of his tenure? So let us look at slide 21. Slide 21 talks about the group exercise for 20 minutes. The new organization chairman read in class and then break up into group. We are not going to break up into a group, but this time around, we are going to, whatever input you have, you share it. Exactly the slide. You share it within the chat box. You are required to give advice to an individual who feel powerless. Explore opportunity to enhance his power base. Report your recommendation. That is exactly what we are seeing there now. So let us look at slide 22, the next one. The new organizational chairman discussion. What are the main sources of his challenge? What are the main sources of his challenge? We're going to look at that area. And in what way is he empowered? And in what way does he need more power? If you were in his shoe, what would you do differently? These are questions that will be tackled. When we finish, we will be able to tackle it very well. But those who we are able to look at yesterday activities should be able to tackle it now. But meanwhile, we still have another opportunity to see. By the time we finish, we're going to tackle it very well. Those who are just coming today. In slide 23 now, new in a role, gain credibility. New in a role, gain credibility. Yes. What are we trying to say? Build credibility in a new role through competence. Competence. You must show competence in whatever you are doing so as to build that credibility. If your competence, if you don't know what you are doing, I'm afraid the credibility will not be there. To see massive, what is wrong with this person? Be willing to learn and adapt to a new way of doing things. Some people don't want to learn. They still think that what we are doing, want to be doing it all the time. No, it's not so. You must learn everything we are doing, whoever you might be, whether you are a professor in many years or any degree of position, you must learn it so as to be able to know what you are doing. By the time you know what you are doing, you'll be able to, people will have confidence in you, they will be happy. Seeing you bringing results, be willing and open to admitting when you do not know, but be proactive in offering alternative or links to where this information can be accessed from or who can help. Look at that. Also, in building, in gaining credibility, you communicate clearly and supportively. You must communicate clearly and supportively. You must be able to say whatever thing that is happening open-mindedly. You have that area. You must at least, you don't need to close yourself. No, you need to open up, and people are there to help and to advance. We also look at the area of using correct grammar and spellings when speaking and writing. Is very important so that one will be able to understand what one is saying. Learn and adapt to different communication styles. Communication styles. You learn and adapt to them. Be current with social media. Social media is so powerful. Be current with it. It's always good to be current. When you are current with it, you'll be able to flow. Be comfortable with microphone and public speaking. Be comfortable with it. Very important. In slide 24, we look at the area of gaining credibility. Some of the tips. The next one, tip. Gaining credibility. 1, seek and receive feedback at every turn. Feedback is very important. That is where you can operate. Without feedback, you cannot. You seem as if you're in the dark. This is a sign of maturity, intelligence, willingness to learn rather than weakness. Look at that. Do not get defensive when giving feedback. Do not get defensive when giving feedback. Express value for feedback received, even when you do not use it. Express value. You should be able to appreciate that person who has sent it. You appreciate the person, and the person will be happy. Next time you request, they will be happy. Dress and comfort yourself appropriately. Dress and comfort yourself. Dress as you would like to be addressed. Very important. Be conscious and watch your manners. They are very, very important. Those are the tips. And also, you have be careful of the people you associate or by associated with. Be careful. Add value to people individually and collectively. Add value, very important. Slide 25. Gaining credibility and influence for mission. The next slide. Yes, looking at that now, we want to look at that aspect of gaining credibility and influence for mission, which we'll go to look at the area of slide 26. One of the perception in globe is lay people like power. Is power a bad thing? What exactly is power? What exactly is power? Is it a bad thing? What exactly? Next slide. What exactly is power? What are the pros and the cons of power? What are the pros and cons of power? You see, people like power. Yes. As far as people like power, is power a bad thing? What exactly is power? And what are the pros and the cons of power? We go to slide 27 now. 27, whatever you have in the area of power and some of the pros and cons, you can as well state. But we look at the area of power. That is slide 27. The next slide. Power, as we all know, the capacity to influence behavior. Power is the capacity to influence behavior. That is power. The next slide. Yes. The capacity to get things done, especially for other people, to get things done, especially for other people. Look at that. The effective use of power and politics is a critical leadership skill. It's a critical leadership skill. A leader's power comes from helping others accomplish their tasks. Our power comes from helping others, not ourselves. No, you help others. That is where power comes from. That's where you will be useful in using your power. Yes. And in slide 28, it talks about a positive view of power. A positive view of power. What are the positive views? We look at power can be used to make a difference in the life of other members, the needy and the power. Look at that, and the poor. Power can be used to make a difference in the life of other members, the needy and the poor. It is the means through which we can accomplish work and influence others for good, for salvation and apostolate, so that one will be happiness. Lack of power that can actually lead to unhappiness. Lack of power, when power is not used very well, leads to what? Unhappiness. In slide 29, we look at abuse of power. Abuse of power. Power is often associated with craftiness, aggression, blunt force, and deceit, because this is how many people in our society have used power. Look at that. That's how people have used power. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Lord Actor was the author. He said, power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. Look at that. Now the question is being asked now. In what way have power been abused in organization by leaders or by people? In what way? Write it on the chat box. In what way has power been abused? In what way? I'm going to look at the area of personal power. Personal power. Stepping, that is slide 30. Stepping stone or stumbling blocks. The next slide. Stepping stone or stepping block. Look at the area of what? When you look at the draft, I wish you are there. Slide 30. The next, okay, yes, that is the place. Yes. Personal power, stepping stone or stumbling block. Look at that. You can now see how power are being used. When power is used very well, it will be effective. You'll be able to empower people. When it is effective, you are empowering people. But when it's not effective, you are not empowering people. You are either causing commotion. You are causing problem, pains to people. You see, causing pains, problem to people. Look at that. And looking, when it's not used very well, what happened? It will not be efficient. Inefficient, you lack power if it's not used very well. That means it's inadequate. If it's sufficient, then the empowerment will be there. You cannot see at the middle there. You cannot, if it is what? Excessively used, it is abuse of power. That shows abuse of power. So you should look at it to go down. But when you empower people, it will be effective, it will be so high, and everybody will be happy. It will call for happiness, it will call for rejoicing. You see, that is power for you. It's always good to have that at the back of our knowledge, that power is good. When power is good, we need to do what? Use it the way it should be used, so that everybody will be happy. When everybody is happy, I am telling you, things will be good. The society will be good. Everybody will be happy. Everybody will be rejoicing. Everybody will feel comfortable, because they are seeing the result, the manifestation of the result. Since you are empowering them, happiness will now come. But a situation whereby the empowerment is not there, that is where the problem comes in. So let us always use power very well, so that everybody will be happy. As you are happy, you yourself will be fulfilled. You yourself will know that, yes, you are doing the right thing. Slide 31 talks about the sources and types of power, sources of power. We have the human capital and individual ability and competencies. Look at that. Social capital. We look at the area of a person's social connection within and outside an organization. The types of power. We have position power, we have personal power. We should take note of this. High social capital, which is related to positive power. Human capital puts employee in better position to capitalize on human capital, which is related to personal power. In slide 32, we look at sources of personal power. Sources of personal power. One, we talk of expertise. When we did the survey yesterday, we look at expertise as skill. We look at all those, we looked at 1 to 24, 28 bullets. We can see expertise, one who has that power of expertise, what the person does, what he did, the action of that person. Today now we are looking at that expertise. When we say expertise, what do we actually mean? Work-related knowledge comes from education. It comes from what? Education. The next slide. It comes from education, self-directed learning and experience. For you to be an expert person, you must, it's an education. It's self-directed, a learning. You must learn it. It's a learning process. And also, it's you gain experience, you have experience, you have expertise. When you look at the area of another source of personal power, we look at the personal attraction. Personal attraction. When we talk about personal attraction, we are looking at the based on charisma, agreeable behavior, and physical characteristics. These are personal attractions based on charisma, agreement, behavior, and physical characteristics. We also look at the area of efforts. Excuse me. Sources of personal power. We look at efforts. What do we mean by that? It's viewed as a sign of commitment and dedication. You must be committed to what you are doing. You must be dedicated to what you are doing. That shows the effort that comes on board. When we look at legitimacy, we look at taking action congruent with the prevailing value system. Focus on the how and what ways of doing things the right way. Look at that. You are doing things legitimately the right way. You are doing things the right way. You are being guided by what is called the organization guideline. When we look at slide 33, it also talks about the ways to enhance your personal attraction. When we talk of personal attraction, we mean the likability. The likability. What are the ways to enhance your personal attraction? The likability. One, you must support an open, honest, and loyal relationship. Support an open, honest, and loyal relationship. Meaning, ensure some sacrifice if the relationship should demand them. Ensure some sacrifice if the relationship demands it. Some people, they don't want to make sacrifice. If you don't make sacrifice, how can you express your love, there must be sacrifice. Just like some of our members of the core team are doing, they are making sacrifice. They are going beyond what they should because of wanting just to help, to make sure if things work out. That is how they want all the organizations to look like. Look at that. Foster intimacy by being emotionally accessible. Look at that. What I mean, foster intimacy by being emotionally accessible. What do I mean by that? Meaning provide social reinforcement in the form of sympathy and empathy. Empathy and sympathy, they are key to make sure that you are able to do what? Actualize what you are looking for, what that person wants. You sympathize, put yourself in that person's level. Empathy, sympathize, you feel for that person. All these are very important. And also looking at the enhancing your personal attraction, which is like ability, you provide unconditional positive regards and acceptance. Providing provide unconditional positive regards and acceptance. Meaning, engage in social exchanges necessary to sustain a relationship. A relationship must be sustained. And for you to sustain a relationship, you must do what? You must engage in the social exchange, which is very, very necessary. We look at slide 34 that talked about discussion. It's a discussional area, just like what we have just done now. We talked about all those sources of personal power. In the discussion class now, you start asking us for discussion class, that is slide 34. Yes, that is where we are now. So for the purpose of developing spiritually committed organization and engaged members, what specifically can you do as an organization leader to enhance your personal power in this area? Expertise. Just like we have said, expertise is all about work-related knowledge, comes from education, self-directed learning and experience. You say, what can you do there? And the other one said, write it down. What can you do? Put it down on the chat box. Personal attraction. And we are told personal attraction is all about based on your charisma, agreement, behavior, and physical characteristics. Put it down. Your efforts. Your effort, what can you do there? Your effort, just like we said earlier, is viewed as a sign of commitment and dedication. Legitimacy, just like we said, is also taking action congruent with the prevailing value system, focus on how and ways of doing things right way, the organizational guideline. That is discussion you have to discuss. And since I've been able to remind Ireko, put it on the note on the chat box, your feelings, your inputs concerning this, so that we'll be able to address it. Look at 35, slide 35, sources of position power. Sources of position power, the next slide. Being in certain position in the organization can be sources of power. Yes, if you are in certain position, can be a source of power. The question now is, how are you using it? But you need to know them. What are they? Number one, you have access to information through horizontal, that is, other organization leaders, and vertical, which is founder and members relationship in the organization, which is centrality. What do I mean? I mean that you have access to information through horizontal. When we talk of horizontal, we are looking at the organization leaders. And when we talk of vertical, we are looking at the founder and the members, their relationship in the organization, which will now form centrality. So, number 2 point, source of position power. Your role gives you the flexibility. Look at that. Your role gives you the flexibility to exercise judgment, such as the chairman of a fundraising committee, which is also flexible. When you are exercising the power, that is what we call flexibility. And also, sources of position power, we look at your role gives you the opportunity to interact with influential people, such as the founder, the head of the department, the director, the MD, because of your role to make announcement, which we call visibility. Look at that. Number 4, your role involves working on objective and issue that are relevant in the organization. This is what we call relevancy because of your role. Like, don't forget there is a case study we need to answer, and that case you can now see answers are coming up now. So take note of all those areas and put it on the chat box. Note, one of the perception is that lay people struggle for position because they want power for the sake of power, or for their own personal gain, or they use power against others. Question, what are the things that we do unconsciously to support this view? Look at that. What are the things we do unconsciously to support this view? I repeat the question again. One of the perceptions is that people struggle for position because they want power for the sake of power. Look at that. Or for their own personal gain, or they use power against others. The question is, what are the things that we do unconsciously to support this view? The next question, what can we do to change it? Look at that. you can put it on the chat box, your view concerning that. Let's look at the slide 36, concluding thoughts, food for thoughts. The next slide, slide 36. 1. Does having personal and position power lead to effectiveness? Does having personal and position power lead to effectiveness? 2. How can we as leaders use our power to develop spiritually committed members and engage organization? How can we use our power? 3. What organizational position confer as centrality? Just like we said the other time, what organizational position confer centrality, flexibility, visibility, relevancy? How can this be used to develop spiritually committed members or engage organization? How can we use centrality, flexibility, visibility, and relevancy? We said it the other time that when we talk about centrality, we are looking at a situation whereby the relationship between who in a vertical way, between founder, members, relationship in an organization, centrality. I haven't looked at the horizontal aspect of which the other leaders within that scope. And when you look at the flexibility, we said it the other time that your role gives you the flexibility to exercise judgment, such as the chairman of a fundraising committee. Your role. So which of the organization can you find all this area? And we talk of relevancy, or we talk about also visibility. Visibility is all about the role giving you the opportunity to interact with influential people, such as the founder, the head of department, director, executive MD, to make announcements. Look at that. Gives you that opportunity. That is what we call visibility. And your role also gives you the opportunity to do what? To work on objective and issue that are relevant in the organization. That is relevancy. Now, what are the organizational position that confers you to look at this area of centrality, flexibility, visibility, and relevancy? How can this be used to develop committed members and engage organization? Put it on the chat box, your feelings about that. Let us look at slide 37. Slide 37 talks about transforming power to influence. Transforming power to influence. What do I mean by that? Most people with personal power are able to influence others. Most people with personal power are able to do what? Influence others. What do I mean by that? Do they always influence for good? Right on the chat box. Most people with personal power are able to influence others. Do they always influence for good? Note, not everyone with position power influence others, and some of those who do not always influence for good. For example, some leaders incite others to ignore those that do not agree with them, pulling others down, putting stumbling block in others' projects. Look at that, which is bad. What other example do you have? Can you write on the chat box? Influential people have power, but not all powerful people have influence. Question: how can we as leaders influence others for God and global peace, since we are working towards 2030 United Nations Sustainability Development Action Plan? We go to the next slide, which is slide 39, talking about influencing strategies. Influencing strategies. There are 3 areas to influence. The 3 areas, that is the area of ROS. We did that yesterday too, but this time around, we want to look at it in details. The 3 arrows. What are the 3 arrows? The retribution, the reciprocity, and also the reason. These are the 3 arrows When we talk of retribution, what do we mean by that? Using coercion and intimidation. Using coercion and intimidation. When we talk of reciprocity, we look at the exchange, bargaining, and integration. We look at that area. When we talk of reason, we look at persuasion based on facts, needs, and personal value and goals, aligned with God's values and the kingdom goals. The question now comes in there. Which do you tend to use? Which do you tend to use? Do you most often, least often, kindly write on the chat box among the three aspects of arrows. Retribution, which is using of coercion, intimidation. Reciprocity, which is exchange, bargaining, and intuition. When we look at number, using reason, persuasion based on facts, needs, and personal value and goal, aligning with God's value and the kingdom goals. Which of them do you tend to use most often? And which of them do you tend to use least often? Right on the chat box, please. Looking at slide 40, talks about the pros and cons of retribution. The pros and cons of retribution. When we talk of the pros of retribution, what do I mean? When there is unequal power balance. When there is what? Unequal power balance. And we talk of the pro too when commitments and quality are not important. That is where retribution is being used. When there are serious violations, the result is immediate. When the result is immediate and there are serious violations, retribution can be used. When there is no time, retribution can be used. These are the advantages of retribution. Everything that has advantage must have disadvantage. But don't look at the one that will be okay by you. But everything depends on how you are able to analyze things, how you are able to do things, where you do things with your mindsets. That's why the heart is deceitful, but very wicked. But we should know the one that befits us, what to use at the particular time. But it's always good to use the good one that will make everybody happy, because we are created to be happy. When the request can be specific and unambiguous requests, you use the retribution. Can we be effective when resistance to request is likely? When we are receiving requests, is it effective? Those are the advantage, the pro. When I look at the cons, the opposite, we look at of retribution. It ignores the rights of others. Look at that. Something that will deprive other people. That's where I will come in, that I want it to be so. It ignores the rights of others and the principle of fairness. Look at that. People are using it, but look at the damage it causes now. Its impact is short. Its impact is short-lived. It's short. The impact is short, but you have caused a lot of damages to people. 3, it promotes high service. Look at that. People will just be biased. People will be doing their high service. They won't be working with their mind. They will be working with their head. Look at that. High service. People do not internalize the value and goals of the kingdom of God. They don't internalize it. They externalize it. But it's always good to internalize it so that you know that it's from your mind and you'll be happy doing justice. That's where the disadvantage comes in, which I will not welcome. But people use it just to go buy away time or to get themselves through in a particular issue. But it's always good not to. But if you want to use it, but be careful of using it. I won't advise anyway. And a question now comes: anyone has example of when the strategy has been used appropriately or inappropriately? Look at that in an organizational setting. Do you have where you use it? Yes? Can they write on the chat box this aspect of the retribution? So let us look at the pros and cons of Reciprocity. We look at the pros of reciprocity. Reciprocity is effective when parties are mutually dependent. Reciprocity is effective when each party has valued resources. Reciprocity is effective when there is adequate time for negotiating. Reciprocity is effective when established exchange norms exist. Reciprocity is effective when commitment to goals not critical. Reciprocity is effective when needs are specific and short-term. Let's look at the cons, the disadvantage. We look at one, mutual satisfaction is the goal, but this may not be aligned with common good and God's value. Look at that. It will not be aligned with common good and God's value. So when you know that your heart is not in line with it, you want to do it. But some people will like, but it's always good to follow the heart when you are working. When we look at the cons of reciprocity, we look at use of friendliness and favor can be used to deceive and obligate the received to go against his or her conscience. Look at that. Common good and God's value and kingdom of goals of salvation and apostolate. You go against it. A question now is being asked. Does anyone has example of when this strategy has been used appropriately and inappropriately in an organizational setting? So kindly write on the chat box. So let us look at the last one. That is the pros and cons of the last arrow, which is reason, the pros and the cons. Everything I have advantage must have disadvantage. Let us look at that of reason. Reason, the pro. Reason is effective when adequate time for extensive discussion. Reason is effective when common goals. Reason is effective when parties share mutual respect. Reason is effective when parties share ongoing relationship. Look at that. Reasoning is effective when effect is internalized and ownership taken. Reason is effective when it builds trust and understanding when meeting attendance is crucial. Reason is effective when endangers coherence of goals and value. Let's look at the cons. Anything that have advantage must have disadvantage. If it's not used in proper direction, that is where reason will not have problem. Let us look at one of the problems we have. Manipulative leaders, look at that. One who manipulates can use the strategy to deceive by getting people to become less defensive and vulnerable. Look at that. Out of a good thing, some people will use that to manipulate. That's why they say manipulative leader can use this strategy to deceive by getting people to become less defensive and vulnerable. Another disadvantage of reasoning is time consuming. It's time consuming. So everything that have advantage must have disadvantage. So, but it's always good to work with the heart. Question: does anyone has example of when this strategy has been appropriately or inappropriately in an organizational setting? Kindly write on the chat box. Kindly write on the chat box. Slide 43. Slide 43 talk about exercising upward influence or managing the boss. Managing the boss. What do we mean by that? Exercising upward influence or managing the boss. Exactly, this is the slide. Exactly this slide. So what are we saying there? Issue selling, convincing your boss, organizational leader or chairman that a particular issue is so important, it requires their attention. Look at that. It requires their attention. That is where you make them know You communicate, issuing, selling. Look at what James Stone did not do. Some of the things he did not do. Answers are just coming up now. If you can remember the case study we are told. Okay? A question now is being another question is being asked. How do you convince an organizational leader to abide by the dictates of the organization guideline? How do you advise them? They are the one that make. They are the one that give. How do you now advise them? They know. How do you advise them? Can they write to the chat box? Not that they don't know. Sometimes they want to test you to see. So you must be diplomatic and use that area of reason. Slide 44, the next slide. In your role as a good organizational leader, recall occasion when someone tried to influence you to do something undesirable using either retribution, reciprocity, or reason. A question is being posed there. What happened? How did you resist their influence? How did you do it? Write it on the chat box. Slide 45, the next slide. How to neutralize unwanted influence strategies. How to neutralize it. How do you neutralize any unwanted, any of the strategy that is unwanted, like reason, that reciprocity, like retribution. How do you do what? Unwanted, how do you neutralize them? Let us look at reason, using reason. Using reason. What do you do? Explain the adverse effects of compliance on performance. Explain the adverse effects. 2, defend your personal right. Defend it. 3, firmly refuse to comply with the request. Firmly refuse. Look at that. That is how you do what? Unwanted one. You explain the adverse effects of the compliance on performance. How it's going to affect the performance result. You explain to them, and you defend your personal, defend it, and firmly refuse to comply with the request. So, how do you also neutralize unwanted influence strategy on the reciprocity? How do you do? Examine the intent of any gifts. Look at that. Or favor given activity. Examine it. Someone come and give you a gift. Examine it properly. B, confront individuals who are using manipulative bargaining tactics. Confront them. C, refuse to bargain with individuals who use high pressure tactics. Refuse to bargain with that person. When we look at slide 46, it talks about how do you do what? How do you neutralize unwanted influence on retribution? How do you neutralize? 1, use countervailing power to shift dependence to interdependence. Confront the exploiting individual directly. Confront them directly. Actively resist it. You don't need to pretend. You actively do it. Resist it. Slide 47. Slide 40. The next slide. Model of influence and power. There's a model of influence and power. When you look at, we have already treated the area of sources of personal power, which we talk about expertise, we talk about personal attraction, we talk about effort, we talk about legitimacy. These are the personal source of power. So we also have sources of position power, which is what we treated earlier: centrality, flexibility, visibility, and relevance. Coming down, we have what we call power of an individual. All this one make the power of an individual. When you look at the source of personal power, you look at the source of position power, they now form what we call power of an individual. These are the area. You have people you report to, people you discuss with, people you compromise with, people you discuss, you try to influence them, try to make them understand the reason. the relevancy of a particular thing, the flexibility of that particular thing. You let the people know who you are as a person, as regard your commitment and dedication, the intimacy, the rightful thing you need to do, your like interest on what your experience and whatever, you use them perfectly. By the time you do that, these are your power of individual, gaining power. So when you look at the other aspect of transforming power into influence, you look at the selection of proper strategy. You select the proper strategy to influence others. The proper strategy you use among the three strategies we said, the proper one, you're going to select it. These are what we call transforming power into influence. You also look at the area of increasing authority. You look at upward influence. And you look at the area of assertive responses to inappropriate influence attained by others. All this one comes together and we have the influence over others. By the time you have all this, the transforming power, you have the gaining power, you are solid, you'll be able to influence others. But if all these things are not there, you cannot. All this must be there, must be complete and fulfilled. So thank God for that. We look at slide 48. 48, section review. Slide 48. The next slide. Any objective, any content, methods, question, clarification, contribution, kindly write on the chat box. We can now see from what we have said so far, we can answer that case study of yesterday with all these facts, with all these things we have said now. When we look at that slide 21, 20, we'll be able to answer them. For instance, now I can still recall it again so that we will also know, you will not see that it will be answered. A group exercise, 20 minutes, the new organization chairman, Ambassador James Stone, assumed office with the hope of building and relative success of the past administration that are active in a number of activities and programs, includes organizing leadership training for all executives of various departments and sections in the organization, promotion of organizational activity geared towards getting inactive members engaged, ensuring that certain departments and sections we are working harmoniously and smoothly in the organization. Ambassador James Stone had just turned 40, was 5 years old in the organization, and had held a leadership position for 2 years when he was elected at an election that was repeatedly advertised with the agenda of an election, but had only 15 people in attendance. Less than 1 year into his tenure, here we are remarkably changes for the work in the vibrancy of the organization. Meeting attendance was at the lowest in 5 years. Organizational activities were sparkling, attended an effort to raise funds for a number of the organizational activities were met with dismay failure. When invited at the executive meeting to give an account of his stewardship and provide solution for turning things around, he stated that nobody listened to him and blamed this on his being formed from a minority state. Some other concerned members dismissed this as an excuse, pointing out that the first organizational chairman who left an impressive record at the end of his tenure was also a minority state. They claimed that he was not doing enough as he lacked the confidence to approach the big and other members of the organization that will make his job far easier. The organization founder was at a loss as to how to resolve the issue. He felt that his hands were tied as he was constitutionally elected. Moreover, many members deliberately stayed away from election as they did not want to invest the time, energy, and other personal resources needed to hold such demanding organizational position. The chairman has 2 years left in his tenure. Discussion: what could he have done to gain the needed credibility to influence the organization effectively? Look at that. You can now see, you'll be able to get the answer from all the what we have said within that same arrow. And what will you advise him to do now to make substantial change before the end of his tenure? With what we have done so far, be able to pick it and know exactly if actually you follow what we are saying. I know most people must have followed it and we're happy about it. It's always good when we are giving a topic, a talk, everybody should be happy concerning what we are saying so as to flow. If you have any question, if you have any clarification, write it on the chat box so that we look at that slide 49, which says, what will you start doing as a result of what you learned today? What will you do differently as a result of what you learned today differently? And 3, what will you stop doing as a result of what you learned today? You look at slide 50, talks about, do we meet the expectation? Do we meet the expectation? And we look at the next slide, slide 51, talks about IIU, International Internship University, is the leading virtual education system and a global brown configuration, which is the most valuable and trusted worldwide and well reputed in delivering innovative programs. Globally, it is a trusted name for quality training program and is committed to providing better and virtual education to all the young learners of the globe. In a short span of time, IIU has spread its wings in 195 countries and 6 continents under the strong leadership of its visionary founder, advocate P.H.D, a committed visionary and inspiring social activist, a passionate educationist from the last 2 decades, providing education to students from various social and cultural backgrounds. The mission of IIU, next slide 52, IIU, International Internship University, many students lack the opportunity to qualify to quality education when they opt for skill and learning-based venture. IIU provide the perfect opportunity for those students who want to pursue their study and want to research in the field of technology, science, and social humanity. We aim at providing internships along with a golden chance of completing their diploma